What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics. So for those of you that have been with us long enough, you probably remember somewhere around 4 or 5 years ago me doing a top 12 nootropics. And what that video was about was, at the time, my top 12 favorite nootropics, my top 12 best nootropics, the nootropics that at the time that I had gotten most utility out of. That is the video right there. And as you see, number 5 was uridine monophosphate. Maybe makes this list, maybe doesn't make this list. Wait and see. So we are going to do my current top 12, because since then, I mean, look, I've experimented with a lot of stuff. I've brought in a lot of research chemicals, pretty much all known to man. Any new nootropic or nootropic-esque chemical that's come on the radar, I have brought it in, experimented with it, created stacks with it, logged it in the logbook, and now I have an updated top 12 favorite, best, most epic nootropic stacks. In the meantime, this broadcast is brought to you by the Cortex Stack. What is the Cortex Stack? Powerful pre-made nootropic stack. Ships to 35 countries at this point. Been around for 5 years. Look, motivation, mental energy, verbal fluency, all in a nootropic stack. Find it at livecortex.com. This broadcast is also sponsored by Nootropics Ground Zero. Nootropics Ground Zero is a video course that I created for people that are new to nootropics. Ground Zero, to take you to the 3-year mark. There's a lot of disparate dose information out there on the web, and it confuses people. Clear it all up with the video course, Nootropics Ground Zero. Video course of yours truly. Get it at livecortex.com. This broadcast is also sponsored by the Nootropics Masterclass, which is another video course that I created to give people the skills, the strategies, and the nootropics methodology to ascend to the 6-year mark. That is defined as the masterclass. You do different things when you are in 6 years to taking nootropics. We have a video course on it. It's called the Nootropics Masterclass. You can get that at livecortex.com. Last thing that this broadcast is sponsored by is the 1-month intensive. Look, we've got 1 month, a 3.5 month, and a 6-month intensive. These are intensive, hands-on, results-driven nootropics consults. The 1 month is probably our most popular at this stage. Primarily business people that want to up their productivity by 50 or more percent and fully optimize brain performance. I mean, the kind of results that we can get in optimizing brain performance using nootropics and research chemicals is crazy. Get the 1 month intensive at livecortex.com. Okay, so into the content in Ryan's current, this is November 2020, top 12 nootropics. Again, we did a video about this 4 or 5 years ago, and that is here. You can still find that live on YouTube, but those nootropics, because of recent experimentation since then, have changed. All right, so we're going to go to number 1. We're going to be doing this on the fly here. Okay, so I'm going to put number 1 on the screen. Number 1 of my current top 12 nootropics, favorite, best, most epic, is DYNAMINE. DYNAMINE is a very interesting compound. Sorry, I'm having this really awesomely conveniently timed itch in my eye. Very incredible compound in that it is like teacrine and caffeine in modulating adenosine receptors, thus promoting wakefulness, but it does so allosterically. It's one of the most cleanest stimulant, but non-stimulant, meaning non-heavy stimulant nootropics there are. In cases where, you know, you might want to take a trip for a day or two, but you don't really want to like capsule racetams or bring modafinil or something, just bring some coffee, perhaps some chaga mushroom, and DYNAMINE. Incredible wakefulness promoting, energy inducing compound. And this year, well, I guess I'll just do them every 4 years, every 5 years. DYNAMINE makes my list. It's not number 1. This isn't on a scale of like the best to the least significant or something. I'm just going through 12. DYNAMINE has made Ryan's top 12 list of best, most epic nootropics. Moving on to number 2. We're going to take it on the screen because I'm doing that on the fly here. Okay, top 12. Number 2 should not be a surprise to some of you. It did make the last list of my favorite and best top nootropics, and it is modafinil. Listen, I'm an old school dude. I like tried and true. I acknowledge that there are analogs of modafinil, like armodafinil, FL modafinil, hydrafinil, etc. And I've tried all those and experimented with a lot of them. It's just that to me, the quicker onset and the slightly better bioavailability, can't talk, and the somewhat different effects, but not substantial. It's just not enough to throw it overboard for me to not use modafinil. I like tried and true. I know my modafinil dose. I know what it stacks well with. All that's in my log. and I just love the compound. It is very, very simple. I've got a good source for it now. And, you know, for a lot of things that come out, that you got these like extra bioavailable versions, these newer chemical modified analogs of the original compound, they just don't impress me all that much. Tried and true, modafinil, 12 hours of productivity, modafinil, right? A crappy night's sleep, modafinil. Nothing changes that. It is still on my list. Number 2, Ryan's top 12 nootropics is modafinil. Very impressive, very awesome wakefulness promoting compound. Number 3, I think, is going to be somewhat of a surprise to some of you because it's a massively underrated compound. But shouldn't be a surprise to others of you that understand that I've been talking about it a lot lately, is BACOPA Monnieri, BACOPA. Now, BACOPA usually makes the list, people's list of like nootropics that are good, or natural nootropics particularly. But in addition to fostering the branching of axons and dendrites and that sort of regenerative aspect of it, being a cholinesterase inhibition nootropic compound mildly, which would give you a little more extracellular acetylcholine, which is good for focus and processing. BACOPA, there are few compounds that I have seen that have been able to, administered long-term, induce regenerative effects and repair certain systems of the brain, particularly the 5-HT system. One of the things that underlies both motivation issues as well as sexual dysfunction in men, probably in women too, is the serotonergic system being dysregulated, whether that is like an inhibition of SERT from an SSRI, desensitized receptor sites, deranged signaling, depleted releasable pool. BACOPA has the ability to address a lot of that. And I have seen it wide scale systematically be a major critical player in repair protocols for major issues that have to do with the serotonergic system. Number 3, which again, people are gonna be surprised, right? Because this is an underrated compound, but it does a lot, again, particularly on the serotonergic system, in repairing the system's regularity, is BACOPA Monnieri. Made my top 12 of epic, best, most interesting nootropics for this go-round. Number 4, this is going to be an interesting one for you folks because we're going to flash back to last time that we did this. Number 4. Number 4 is uridine monophosphate. And if you look back or remember back to the image that I just posted of the previous video, which was like 4 or 5 years ago when I did this, my top 12 favorite nootropics, uridine monophosphate also made the list. Listen, one of the most versatile nootropic compounds there is, not only stacking it with a choline source, B vitamins, DHA, some magnesium, is neurogenic, very powerfully neurogenic, but sensitizes dopamine receptors, fosters an extra release of dopamine and adrenaline and noradrenaline. But it just, in terms of the roster of nootropics that we have at our fingertips, racetams, afenils, non-neurotransmitter modifying compounds, etc., uridine monophosphate stacks with a lot of them. Verbal fluency, mental energy, productive drive, the will to work, general brain fluidity that lasts hours after the acute effect. Uridine monophosphate is an incredibly powerful compound. In fact, the combination of uridine and CDP choline, 2 other compounds, got me through 18 hours of work running my previous company, where it's very, very brain intensive. Uridine monophosphate has made the list again, and this time it is at number 4 of Ryan's top 12. Best, favorite, most optimal, most epic nootropic compounds. People watching this for the first time like, this guy's super hyperbolic. I'm just excited. All right, that is number 4. Number 5 probably shouldn't come as much of a surprise to folks because I talk about it a lot and have very practical applications for it. Number 5 on my top 12 favorite nootropics, best nootropics at this stage, November 2020. Just want to make sure you guys understand how current this is ANIRACETAM. ANIRACETAM. Not only is ANIRACETAM useful in its memory I/O optimizing capabilities, right? Changing the ability, improving particularly the ability to take information, put it in your working memory, keep it in there, take other information, put it in your working memory, work with that information, remove some of that information, but keep information there. That's memory I/O. ANIRACETAM has a powerful ability to do that. But not only does it have an ability to do that, it's also highly stimulatory, gets you driven to do work, improves general memory and cognitive processing, and stacks with the wide array of stuff that we usually talk about, sort of the classical nootropics that fit into that category of nootropics. These days, a lot of people want to throw in compounds that actually aren't nootropics. ANIRACETAM is incredible. The most recent practical use that I've had for it is in the morning supplement regimen, which includes B vitamins and some testosterone stuff and some general brain regulating compounds. I put ANIRACETAM in the mix for like 5 days, sometimes 5 days straight, and it adds an element of brain function to the mix. Not substantially, powerfully, acutely noticeable, but definitely changes my ability to process information. Highly, highly useful for sifting through financial data or otherwise doing cerebral intensive work. Number 5 on my top 12 list currently is ANIRACETAM. Shifting to number 6. This is going to be a surprise because I do not believe this made the last list, but I'm going to explain why it is extremely useful and why it's made my list this time around 4 or 5 years later. Is COLURACETAM. COLURACETAM, extremely versatile compound, dose range 5 to 40 milligrams roughly, stacks with a lot of other acetam, stacks with APHENYLs, stacks with, energy-inducing compounds like DYNAMINE, teacrine, MODAFINIL. But the most important part of it, and one of the things that I've learned over the last 4 years in my 13 years of experimenting with nootropics, is that maintaining uptake, meaning that the precursor, the neurotransmitter precursor into cells being synthesized into the neurotransmitter, is critical, both for the releasable pool of that neurotransmitter and general maintenance of that system. COLURACETAM fosters what's called high affinity choline uptake, okay? Uptake of the raw precursor into cells for the synthesis of acetylcholine. COLURACETAM is sort of like a maintenance cholinergic compound, especially in the heavy presence over a 30 to 60 day period of using lots of other cholinergics, which a lot of us that need heavy intense processing do. COLURACETAM is an extremely impressive compound, and it has made my list this time around. Ryan's top 12 most epic, best, most favorite, most optimal nootropic compounds. That is number 6, COLURACETAM. Do not underestimate its power. Dose it wisely. Stack it with things. It is an incredible compound. Moving on to number 7. Number 7 may or may not be a surprise for people, but I think you guys are going to understand when I put it on the screen. Number 7 is acetyl L-carnitine, okay, affectionately known as ALCAR. Not only is ALCAR useful for shuttling fatty acids to the brain for the mitochondria to use as an energy source and thus kind of power brain function, in addition to glucose, it has a lot of other really awesome properties, not the least of which is shuttling essentially an enzymatic process to the creation of acetylcholine, so it's mildly cholinergic. Also, though, chronic use of ALCAR fosters the expression of nerve growth factor, very epically important and useful reparative protein in the brain. In addition to that, it's been demonstrated in the research that chronic use of ALCAR has the ability to remove quantities of lipofuscin. It's sort of a buildup of toxins that ends up in your brain. ALCAR is an extremely awesome compound, best used for energy. I've used ALCAR like when I've had a few beers or something out and I can feel my cognitive decline starting to happen. Take the ALCAR 300 to 500 milligrams, changes the dynamic completely, keep my brain about me. So many uses for ALCAR. And by the way, it also fosters the release of dopamine in mesocortical limbic areas of the brain. Number 7 on Ryan's top 12 list of epic, favorite, most optimal nootropics is acetyl L-carnitine. Extremely underrated compound, very powerful compound. Moving on to number 8. Now this may surprise people, and this is sort of in line with what I was saying, how the reason that this list changed over the years is because I've experimented with so much more, obviously, as things have come out, is 9-methyl-bicarboline. Isn't that weird how it looks like there? Because it's an 8 and then the number. 9-MeBC is an extremely useful, extremely versatile nootropic compound, primarily in upregulating and optimizing 2 critical dopamine conversion, dopamine synthesis enzymes, dopa decarboxylase, as well as tyrosine hydroxylase. But its critical mode of action is resensitizing a couple critical dopamine receptors. The interesting thing, aside from the acute effect that you can get, like motivation and some sex drive increases, the will to work, is that what I have seen it do in my consulting work with business people is take people that have had long-standing dopamine derangement syndromes from using hardcore pharmaceutical dopaminergic stimulants and be a major player, a major element in the repair process. Translation, I have seen 9-MEBC help people to resensitize dopamine receptors when previous to that they were in a position where they really didn't feel motivation, sex drive, any of that stuff, and it was related to their pharmaceutical stimulant use. 9-MEBC has a potent ability to repair the dopaminergic system. Not saying it should be taken by itself to repair the dopaminergic system. You have to be really, really nuanced with this kind of stuff, but it is a major player. Very, very impressive, and it has made my list and Ryan's current top 12 most epic favorite nootropic compounds. That is number 8, 9-methyl-bicarboline. Incredibly awesome compound. Number 9 we are on. This may come as a surprise to people because I haven't talked about it all that much, but it's got so much utility I cannot not include it, is DIHEXA. Okay, so I first heard about DIHEXA, I want to say, I actually think it was from the guy that runs limitlesslifenootropics.com. He PM'd me on Facebook and was like, hey man, I got this new neurogenesis agent that you should look at and maybe sample and do a review about. I did, and I brought it into my record log of nootropics. I have this giant book of stacks that I've created, adjusted, and used over the years for certain things. I used DIHEXA on and off for the ensuing 5 years. It's a very, very powerful compound. What it's doing is binding to hepatocyte growth factor, and hepatocyte growth factor is scores more powerful than nerve growth factor. So you're talking about majorly epic neurogenesis, the ability for the brain to regenerate in a variety of areas. And on the anecdotal side, I have seen it be incredibly useful, like a critical element of the repair or recovery protocol. And people that have had post-benzo syndrome, they've taken benzodiazepines for quite some time, they've got a bunch of derangement on the benzo sites of the GABA A receptor, that DIHEXA was a critical element in their recovery from that syndrome. DIHEXA, not to be underrated, very, very powerful compound, even provides an acute effect of improved cognitive processing when you take it. Number 9 on my list of Ryan's top 12 most epic, most favorite, best, most optimal nootropics is DIHEXA. Very powerful compound. Be careful with it, dose it wisely, use it wisely. Moving on to number 10. Where did we go here? Here we go. Number 10 of my top 12 favorite, best, most optimal, current nootropics is NOOPEPT. Back to tried and true, man. I mean, NOOPEPT is just a tried and true compound. First of all, stacks with all the other racetam, stacks with modafinil, stacks with other energy-inducing compounds like DYNAMINE, like teacrine, like chaga mushroom. But it's just, you're doing a couple things using NOOPEPT, and this is why it's useful. You're fostering the expression of nerve growth factor, very, very useful in repairing elements of the brain that may be downed or need repair, especially as we age, especially as there's things in our environment that fuss with brain function. But also, dramatically improving the efficiency with which your brain uses and signals acetylcholine. Okay, it is a very, very powerful compound. On the anecdotal side, listen, I was a person that had a hard time reading information and comprehending information, like a book, for example. And then these days, obviously, like, 20-page scientific studies. I used to just read books, and I'd turn the page, I'd be on the next page, and like I had just read a previous page, but I was unable to synthesize the information from the previous page on top of what I was reading. Like I'd be like, I don't even know what I just read. I'd have to go back and read it a couple times. It was just a pain in the ass. After experimenting with NOOPEPT for a considerable period of time, it was around 4 years, the basis of which was a book that I wrote called the NOOPEPT Pro Stack List, which you can find at livecortex.com, just to break down a NOOPEPT stacks, how to use it. That actually changed for me. I mean, these days I read 50-page papers, scientific papers on nootropics, on everything else in between. I attribute a good bit of that to taking nootropics over the last 13 years, but where that really changed for me and my ability to comprehend was after that stint with NOOPEPT and that experimental period where I was writing that book. Number 10 on my top 12, tried and true, is NOOPEPT. Very powerful memory compound, powerful energy compound, and in some cases facilitative of slightly better vision via cholinergic function in the retina. Very awesome, very useful, very versatile compound. That is number 10. Okay. Number 11 in Ryan's top 12. Favorite, best, most optimal nootropics is, and this may or may not be a surprise to people, okay, phenylpiracetam. Phenylpiracetam. Now, I'm not sure that it actually made the last one that we did, which was 4 years ago. And by the way, you can still find that on YouTube. But it has to make it this time around. I've just realized there's so much utility for phenylpiracetam. Not only is it improving cholinergic signaling, but it is also improving physical performance. That's why it's actually banned in Olympic sports and other kind of sports situations or competitive sports. But it is a mild dopamine reuptake inhibitor in the acute period in which it is affecting you. Energy, the will to work, motivation, and stimulation. Phenylpiracetam is like the modafinil of racetams. It's an incredibly useful compound. Stacks with modafinil, stacks with other racetams, stacks with other energy-inducing compounds. It is a great base for sophisticated stacks. And there's a large dose range. Really, you're talking about 20 to 250 milligrams. You can do a lot with phenylpiracetam. Having it around as you travel and don't want to kind of break out the powders and capsule things and you want to keep things simple, incredibly useful. 200 milligrams phenylpiracetam, a little bit of choline, maybe some eggs, down the hatch, and you've got some good functionality for about 4 hours. Number 11 on Ryan's top 12 is phenylpiracetam. Now, moving on to number 12, the last one. I don't think this is going to surprise you, but for those of you that saw the last video that we did on this years ago and realized that this compound was in there, and we're maybe thinking, is Ryan going to include this compound in this updated version of Ryan's top 12 nootropic compounds? The answer is yes, and it's caffeine. Okay, caffeine. Caffeine is the most widely used nootropic there is. And by the way, like on discussions of like nootropics being cheating or nootropics being infringed, like everybody in the world, you know, for the most part, uses a nootropic in liquid form. It's called caffeine. Wakefulness, energy, jump-starting the day. Quite honestly, aside from my supplement regimen, and, you know, look, I mean, nootropics, caffeine is like the most important part of my morning. I wake up, I crave it. I wake up, I'm excited about it. Like, I'm like a kid at Christmas when I wake up because I know coffee is the first thing aside from my supplement regimen that I'm reaching into. Stacks well with everything, okay? I mean, using caffeine in conjunction with uridine, as an example, works somewhat similarly on the adenosine receptor system, that the two of them stack incredibly well together, that they potentiate each other. Stacking caffeine with modafinil intensifies the effect of modafinil. Stacking caffeine with dynamine intensifies the effect of dynamine. Stacking caffeine with some of the other hardcore dopaminergic or noradrenaline or adrenaline-mediated stimulants like phenylalanine improves the function of the stimulant effect. Things like NALT. Caffeine improves the function of the stimulant effect. We obviously know caffeine stacks incredibly well with the amino acid L-theanine in inducing energy, but sort of having a background common there to balance things out. Number 12 on my list, my current list, my top 12 nootropics is caffeine. Look, caffeine is here to stay. It is an incredible compound. And yes, for the record, for your aunt and your brother and your co-workers that say, you're a little weird for taking nootropics, point them to their coffee mug. Number 12 is caffeine on my list of top 12 nootropics, and that is it, my friends. Again, this list really comes from the time that I did that last video, which again, you can still find at the Cortex Labs Nootropics channel on YouTube. I mean, I've experimented a lot, brought in all the research chemicals, brought in new nootropic compounds, brought in a bunch of fringe chemicals, so many different nootropic chemicals and brain-modifying compounds that some of these chemicals are actually on here. In addition to that, how they have practical applicability and utility in my life has heavily influenced this list. Essentially, the 12 compounds that I just put on the screen are the primary nootropics that I use now. Yeah, and it's at this point, for those of you who don't know, it's probably about 15 days a month that I'm using nootropics. I like to cycle off, etc. Those are my top 12. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I figured I would do another one of these because it's been 4 years. And in the next 4 years, as more compounds come to light and I experiment with those compounds, jot them in the log, find their utility, and then make them sort of scheduled and regular in my regimen. There will probably be another updated Ryan's Top 12, but that's probably going to be in some years because it takes time to do all that. Guys, thank you so much for being with me. It's been a pleasure being with you. I was super excited to do this video because we got such a massive turnout on that last video. I think there was like 136,000 views. So I hope that I've been useful in informing you what my favorite nootropics are, the practical utilities of these nootropics, and everything else in between. Guys, this broadcast has been brought to you by the Cortex Stack. What is the Cortex Stack? Look, powerful pre-made stack, ships to 34 countries. Motivation, mental energy, verbal fluency, primarily for business people that just need to focus and have energy and be motivated. The Cortex Stack is an incredible commercial nootropic stack. I created it myself, had it manufactured 5 years ago, and it is incredible. You can find that at livecortex.com. Also brought to you by Nootropics Ground Zero video course that I created. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long, that shows you from that confused ground zero state, being brand new to nootropics, how to actually know how to use nootropics and get results. It'll take you from ground zero to the 3-year mark. That's defined as the pro level of using nootropics, and you can find the Nootropics Ground Zero video course at livecortex.com. Also, this broadcast has been brought to you by the Nootropics Masterclass. That's a video course of yours truly as well, about an hour and 15 minutes long, that shows you what people that are at the 6-year mark and using nootropics are doing differently than what you are doing. Look, I mean, people get different results at the 6-year mark. They stack differently. More importantly, they adjust stacks differently to get results. It takes them shorter strokes to adjust stacks. It takes shorter time. They're able to induce certain states on cue, knowing the whole reservoir of nootropics that are available, and having nootropics methodology infused into their stacking and adjusting approach. Get the Nootropics Masterclass at livecortex.com. Last thing, this broadcast has been brought to you by is the 1-month intensive nootropics consult, our second most popular product in terms of consulting overall. It's 30 days of working directly with me to improve brain performance. I mean, we bring in research chemicals, we bring in nootropics, we fix your energy baseline issues. Primarily business people, but everybody else in between that has the budget, it needs to be effective and wants to fully optimize brain performance. The 1-month intensive is an incredibly useful consulting program where you work with me straight to achieve the outcome of massively enhanced productivity and massively enhanced brain function. All right, everybody, thanks so much for being with me. That has been Ryan's Top 12 current, favorite, most epic, most optimal nootropics. It's been a pleasure having you guys. Look forward to more live streams coming on the channel. For those of you that are seeing this video that have never been to the channel, welcome to the Cortex Labs Nootropics YouTube channel. This is a channel where no question is a stupid question, where we discuss nootropics and research chemicals and brain optimization and biohacking pretty much every day, with never-ending videos, about 1,000 at this point, never-ending live streams, more coming soon, more already posted. Hope you guys subscribe, hit the bell. Thanks so much for being with me, everybody. Talk to you next time.